Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin of Father Son Galaxy. My guest tonight is Todd Hoffman, who is a co-host of Big T, Little T, a Star Wars podcast, and he's a huge wrestling fan. And we're going to talk about wrestling. Todd, how are you doing?
Doing well, and you're saying it wrong already. It's wrestling. We're going to talk about some wrestling today.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I've been out of it.
We got to keep this loose. We got to keep this loose. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been out of this for a while, so I may be asking some dumb questions throughout this episode, like where
never
have you been?
A dumb question.
But when I came to you about this subject, I was telling you the story. And I wanted to just tell it again. I was in New York City and I was going to Forbidden Planet. This one of those big comic shops,
big comic book shop.
Yeah. And located on Union Square. And I walked in. Of course, I haven't been there in years. So I walked in. I was so excited to be back, and I'm walking around. I'm just looking, nothing out of the ordinary. I'm seeing comic book section, the new releases section, and then get to the toy area, and you see toys for Star Wars and Marvel.
Everything's tracking.
And then I look to my right, and I just see a whole wall of pro wrestling action figures.
Right.
And I'm shocked. Like, well, okay, well, since when?
Where'd this come from? Yeah.
Since when did comic book fans watch pro wrestling? Like, I've never seen the two of them together. So I was intrigued by this, and I wanted to talk to you because I know that you're a big wrestling fan. And the first question I have for you, I wanted to ask you, when did you start watching wrestling?
Okay. Before our question, I got to get this off my chest right away. The biggest thing about wrestling is everybody says it's fake. Okay. Right. That's the biggest thing. Guess what? All the entertainment we consume is fake. So I just want to, Breaking Bad's not real. Star Wars is not real. Game of Thrones is not real. Wrestling is real, but it's definitely, there is some scripting, but at the same time, it's kind of like real life drama. So just want to get that off my chest. So, but to answer your question, I started watching wrestling when I was like probably 9 or 10. And so what Saturday morning cartoons, the kids don't know what this is, but the Saturday morning cartoons would happen. That would end like at 11. And then from like 11 to 12 was like world of wrestling, and was like WWE. And so they would condense, some of the shows that they had into this kind of TV format. And, we're peaking at 85. This is 85, like right when like Hogan's getting hot, and just like, so all those characters are larger than life. And here I am just like eating it up. I'm just like, have the cereal bowl and just like, yep, feed me more, and it really, it was starting to peak with Hogan coming on the scene and stuff like that. And so like, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, my man, Macho Man, Macho Man Randy Savage. There's all these kind of larger than life characters on the screen. And so that's kind of how I got into wrestling.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah. So I do remember that golden era of wrestling with the WWF at the time, back in the 80s and the 90s.
Not the World Wrestling Foundation, which is where they went. They had to change their name because of some, conservative animal lovers. But that's good. Animals are great, but that's
yes, right. Yeah. So they were the WWF, and then they changed it to World Wrestling Federation, and then changed it to World Wrestling Entertainment.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you got
it. And I'm sure it's wrestling is international. It's a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
I was looking at their numbers from 2023. WWE is worth more than $8 billion. That's pretty huge. Yeah. So, okay. And then who would you consider your favorite wrestlers? Do you have one or more than one favorite wrestler?
I have quite a few lists, but I would say like kind of, if you do the Mount Rushmore or something like that, first one's Macho Man Randy Savage. That's like my boy. I just love Macho Man. He's over the top. His promos are by far the best, and they're great. So I like Macho Man. Sting is probably my second. I love Sting. Sting is like WCW, did a little time in WWE, but mostly WCW and AEW is where Sting is at. Yeah, just love him. CM Punk is another one that is up there. He's a Chicago boy. He also kind of branched out. He actually did UFC for a little bit and then came back. And so, yeah, so he was in WWE, then went to AEW. He came back to AEW and then recently just went back and joined WWE. So, yeah, so CM Punk, also like Goldberg. Goldberg was in the 90s. So, he was big in the WCW era. And, yeah, Goldberg. And then there's a lot more favorites, but basically those are kind of like my top four there. So,
Have you ever been to a live event?
yeah, I've been
Yeah.
to several live events. In fact, my dad took me, was at the time called the Rosemont Horizon, and we would go. And at this time, these were what would preferably called like live events in WWE language today, or dark events, because it wasn't really televised. It was just like a show, and they would still wrestle. And again, back then, this is where they were pretty much on the road 365 days. They were on the road all the time. So they were doing a lot of live shows. And so we went a couple times, probably got some picture somewhere of like really dark, like really dark, like not in focus wrestling pictures. But yeah, I started going. And in fact, I even conned my dad, and me and my buddy, we went to WrestleMania 8 in Indianapolis, and that was huge. It was awesome. It was great. That was back in the day of Ticketmaster, where you had to go to like Carson's and like wait in line. And I was like, Dad, we have to go to WrestleMania. It's in Indianapolis, and we went. It was awesome. It's great. It's great. And then yeah, I've been to a bunch of WCW ones, AEW. Yeah, and Trent and I just recently went to a SmackDown, and we were spent. We were spent. It's like emotionally draining, but it's so much fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Any favorite matches that stood out for you?
I mean, there is obviously a lot of great matches that I've seen live, but also, obviously with the pay-per-views. And um, I think they call them PLEs now. I don't know. They're always changing because it's not really pay-per-view anymore, because like you're in the network, so you're like right now I think WWE has Peacock, so it streams on Peacock, and then now Raw's on Netflix, which is ginormous,
It's huge.
so
Yeah.
it's huge, so that's bringing in more casual people now, so um but yeah, as far as favorite matches, I mean, there's so many, man. There's so many. I mean, the recent run with Cody Rhodes has been really fun. So Roman Reigns was a champ. He had the belt forever, like I think 3 years or something. And so WrestleMania, he was going against Roman Reigns. You think he's going to win. This is his year, and then he loses, and you're just like, what? And then flash forward a year later. So last year, this is when uh, Roman is teaming up with The Rock. So The Rock came back, and so he was beating up Cody Rhodes. Everybody's ganging up on him, and so then that WrestleMania match, like Cena shows up, Undertaker shows up, Rock shows up, and they're all trying to interfere and stuff like that. And Cody finally just singly takes down Roman Reigns, and he becomes a champion. So it was literally probably 3 years of storytelling for that match, and I think that's what's cool about wrestling. It's like, yes, it's scripted to a point, but most of it, you're telling a story, you're telling a story in the match itself, along with all the other promos and everything else that's leading up to that event. But the wrestling match itself is a story in its own little thing, and if done well, you're going to get these kind of ebbs and flows, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, is this going to happen? Is he going to win? Is he not going to win? And they got the false finishes and, the big moves. Everybody gets their bumps. And then, hopefully it comes out on top with your guy that you wanted.
Interesting. So, so we know that you have a podcast that you co-host with your son,
Right.
Trent.
Yeah.
So you're a big Star Wars fan, obviously.
Obviously.
I-
Yes. Yeah.
is there
Check. Check.
is there a connection or um, what does wrestling and Star Wars maybe have in common that you could share both with your son?
Yeah. First of all, Darth Vader has the best wrestling entrance. He's got the pyro, he's got the door that blows up, and then he's got a cool outfit, in the wrestling world, that would be like a cool gimmick. He's got the look, he's got the music, he's got the pyro when he comes out. I mean, Darth Vader's entrance is bar none. That's like a really easy connection. But I think it goes simply back to good versus evil. In wrestling talk, you have a baby face and you got a heel. You got a kayfabe and you got somebody that is the mean guy. And so it's like good versus evil. Fundamentally, that's what it comes down to, and you have that in Star Wars. You have good versus evil, and getting to see that play out. So I think that's where there's a big connection between the dark side and the good side, and the bad guys are going to cheat and try to cheat, steal, and try to do it and get the win. And the best wrestling is when the bad guy has the belt, because the good guy is always trying to chase that belt. And the good guy, like a Ric Flair, or like a bad guy like Ric Flair, he's like just a heel. He's doing all this dirty stuff when the ref's not looking, or he's got a goon that helps him out. Like there's all those like little things that every good bad guy has a lackey or a team, and the good guy does too. Like they have people that help them out when things get rough. And I think, again, Star Wars, you can't do it by yourself. You need a team, and it kind of flows. You need the rebels and need that, against the Empire. Single-handedly you can't do it, but as a group of people you can take over, the bad guy or the evil empire. So
So it also comes down to storytelling, doesn't it? Because you
yeah.
mentioned that, it is scripted, part of it, wrestling, and you don't know the outcome. You don't know what's going to happen, who's going to win.
Right.
And, you want, of course, the good guy to win. And if he does or she does, you're standing up, you're cheering, you're applauding. It's no
Yeah.
different than going to see a Star Wars film where you're rooting for
Right.
the good guy. Or,
Right.
you might be a person who roots
You
for
might,
the
hey,
villain.
you
Yeah.
know, some people like Empire,
Yeah.
the Imperials, stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
now talking to you about it, I can see where the connection is, where that
I mean,
the yeah, the same group of people who watch wrestling are the same people who go see a Star Wars or a Marvel or a DC film.
yeah, I think too. Like, I mean, with Marvel and the superheroes. I mean, it's like you need this advocate to help save the day, and the good guy has good morals, and this superhero, Superman's coming out. Like you have this kind of Boy Scout, like somebody that has good morals, but he's not from this world, and fighting an evil corporation with Lex Luthor. I mean, it fundamentally comes down, like I said, it's good versus evil is where it kind of fundamentally happens. And then you have your kind of champions, like in the superhero realm or in the wrestling realm. You have like that's my guy. I identify with this guy. And again, it could be a bad guy or a good guy, but like I really like that guy. And it could be, or a girl, it could be like whatever if it's a gimmick, it's a look. I mean, and again, now things are crossing over. I mean, Sasha Banks, Snoop Dogg's cousin, is in The Mandalorian. Gina Carano, I mean, slightly different, but UFC in The Mandalorian, I mean, it's, it, they blend more than you think they blend, I think.
Yeah, so more than any other, you correct me if I'm wrong, more than any other pro sport player, it seems that professional wrestlers have a more easier time transitioning from wrestling to acting. Why do you think that is?
Because they're acting every night. I mean, like when you think about like a promo or when they get in front of, the in back when, when I was growing up, the promos were usually a tape thing. Like they're cutting, like they're setting up the match. Like, okay, I'm gonna, Macho Man would be like, I'm gonna take you down, Ricky Steamboat or whatever. It's taped. In modern times, the promos are live. Like they're literally in front of, 20,000 people cutting this promo on why they think they're better than this guy or what they're gonna do. And they have to read the audience. They have to know, and feel like, okay, this is how I'm going to deliver it. But I mean, they don't have it. It's not like they're reading a teleprompter, you know? And I think that's where it becomes very natural for the wrestler to transition to acting because like, dude, I do this every day, you gotta, again, yes, do people get hurt in wrestling? Absolutely. But a lot of it, they're selling it. It's like, oh my gosh, that looked, not only did that move look amazing, but now that guy's like, he's not getting up, like he might be dead, like they're selling it, sure, they might be hurt a little bit, but they're really just selling the move. And so I think cutting live promos and interacting with people and staying in character is exactly what actors do. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is not Iron Man, but I really do think he's Iron Man, you know? And just like, in the wrestling world, like I think Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to beat up Vince McMahon, like for real. Like that's a real deal, like, so I think that's where, it naturally blends. Now, is every wrestler an actor? No, but another Miz is on the roster, and he started like on an MTV reality show, and he's like one of the best heels. Like he get, in wrestling terms, he gets a lot of heat, like a lot of heat because they don't like him, but he's like a good bad guy because he just knows how to be, that what you don't like in people. You're like, oh, it's not good.
Interesting. So I was curious to see wrestlers, how far back it goes with wrestlers in film. When did it start,
Mm,
or who were one of
yeah,
the early,
yeah,
the pioneers of wrestlers turned actors? So what I found was that the earliest acting role played by a
uh
professional
huh,
wrestler was Tor Johnson. Now, Tor
okay,
Johnson he was born Carl Eric Tor Johansson in 1903. He's a
wow,
Swedish professional wrestler and an actor. He's 6'3". He was 6'3", 400 pounds.
big
And
dude,
at the time, he appeared in B movies in the 1960s, many of them directed by Ed Wood. The Bride of the Monster, Plan 9 from Outer Space, Night of the Ghouls. Of course, because of his size and his lack of acting skills, they needed him to be the heavy, right? He had to be the
right,
menacing character, and
yeah,
that's where the stereotype comes into play. And this is something I didn't know. So do you remember the movie Ed Wood starring Johnny Depp?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yep,
So they had a character in the movie uh, based on Tor Johnson, playing Tor
mm,
Johnson in the movie. And
yeah,
that was played by a pro wrestler named George the Animal Steele.
yes, uh huh,
George
yeah,
Steele. Yeah, that name sounds very familiar. So
yes,
that's interesting. So that was,
yeah,
as far as I know, one of the earlier acting roles
right,
from a pro wrestler. In comic books, um,
mm,
Tor Johnson was also featured in a cartoon, a comic strip that was called Tor Johnson at Home. It was published in 1981. It was an issue of Robert Crumb's Weirdo magazine.
okay, yeah,
Okay. And then even in Marvel, this is something I noticed too. Secret Wars. We've been hearing about that. That's coming up soon.
right, right,
There are a group of villains in Battle World, and they were called the Wrecking Crew.
Okay.
And if you hear the names, I mean, it sounds like wrestling
Wrestlers?
moves. Yes, right. So they're
Yeah.
called, one
Yeah.
is called the Wrecker,
Yeah.
Thunderball,
Mm-hmm.
Pile Driver,
Yeah.
and Bulldozer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody from Marvel, apparently was a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought we could just spend the rest of the time just talking about wrestlers in
Hmm.
movie roles. Like one were some of our favorites, one where, it was cool to have them. We know there's no acting skills there, but at least they stood
Hmm.
out.
Yeah.
We've already talked about him. So let's start with Hulk Hogan. The first
Hogan.
time, yeah, the first time I saw him was in Rocky 3.
Rocky 3 Thunderlips.
Yeah. Yeah. He was
So
one
good.
of the,
So yeah, that Vince
yeah,
McMahon did not want Hulk Hogan to do that. Cause yeah, he just didn't want to do it. But Hulk's like, I'm gonna do it. And actually it worked out into Hulk Hogan's favor because it even propelled him even more because you have a major movie and the size difference. It's in the script. It's like, what is that, a brontosaurus, or like what? I mean, it's just Stallone's in great shape, but then you see this larger than life man of Hulk Hogan, and Hogan's in his prime. I mean, he's just it doesn't even look real, and it's great. It's
yeah.
great.
He towers over him. It's just
Yeah, it's great.
ridiculous. It's
And,
like,
and Hogan was before he became the Hulkster and the Hulkamania, he was a heel. So he's playing into that bad guy role. He's got his girls, they come up, and it's just like this guy's gonna, again, they're playing into the like, oh, this is fake. It shouldn't be real. Hogan knows how to throw a punch. He knows how to do all these things and beats up Rocky. It's great. It's a great kind of first step. But then he does like the nanny or something like that. It's like, okay. But he showed up in A Team. You got,
that's
and
true.
that's another, again, that's another connection because now you're bringing in Mr. T
Exactly.
into that. Mr. T and Hogan pair up in WrestleMania 1. I mean, that's one of the things that Vince did a really good job of, is not only poaching the talent, because like wrestling was very territorial. Like each, the Midwest, the Southeast, or, South, North, they all had these champions, like local champions. And Vince went in and basically took all the champions and put them in his. It was kind of a good old boys club, and he kind of just like, I want the top talent to come in, and that's how kind of WWE took off, because now you have the best of the best being in one organization. But again, that crossover between mainstream and wrestling, it becomes less of a carnival act, and this is like a real thing. Like now it brings some legitimacy. So wait a minute, Mr. T is like a bad dude. Now he's hooking up with Hogan. Oh, they're gonna, it just brings, so you got, and that, I think that first one, you got Cyndi Lauper, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you got like this kind of edgy. It's not mainstream. It's not as, back then it was edgy and not as mainstream. So it's like, wait, wrestling? But now you have these kind of bigger stars from Hollywood interacting with wrestling, and it becomes kind of almost like a good partnership or marriage, if you will. So, but yeah, I think Hogan to me is probably the first to kind of break that. So now he's starting to show up in TV shows and, movies. And I mean, I think it's, that's kind of what started it all, I think.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's one of the most recognizing figures in pro wrestling. And I remember the first WrestleMania. That was in 1985. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just huge because I was living in
Yeah.
Brooklyn at the time. And the
Okay.
event took place at Madison Square Garden. So
Yes.
you couldn't miss it. It was on TV. Everybody's talking
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
then you brought up Cyndi Lauper, which is, you know, a very weird time. Like Cyndi Lauper, for the young kids who don't know, she's a pop singer from the 1980s. And
Right.
apparently she was a wrestling fan. And, she was such a big fan that in her song, one of her biggest songs, "Girls Just Want to Have Fun."
Captain Lou.
Lou
Captain Lou's.
Albano played her dad in
Yeah,
the
I've
in the video.
and
It's
it's
like
perfect. It's
very
perfect.
unusual. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that's what it was. Like you're right. Vince McMahon knew, okay, well, in order to make this exciting, you got to get the stars of Hollywood involved. You know what I mean? Get the music, get the actors, and bring them all together. It was just, it was like a Las Vegas show. Like
Right.
it was a who's who
Yeah,
on that day.
right. It's trying to bring some pomp and circumstance to just a wrestling match. There's a lot more theatrics, and again, so WrestleMania is the biggest and best event, and that still holds true to this day. I mean, the production value of what they bring is second to none. I mean, they know not only, like in wrestling, it's called spots. Like you need to make sure, you're towards this camera or this area, or when you do the finisher, this is where you're looking, and you want to make sure you're getting the right moves at the right time. But then it's also all the camera work. I mean, case in point, I forget, it was a recent one where Logan Paul, again, a YouTuber, is now a wrestler and
Yeah.
destroying it. He is phenomenal. He's a phenomenal athlete, but everybody hates him because he's like this outsider. He literally, they got these drone cameras now. In his promo, or like at one point of the match, the drone's flying over. He grabs the drone, right? And then I forget who he's wrestling, but then the wrestler does a move off the top and he's holding the drone. And so now you got this kind of GoPro moment where you're hitting the mat with Logan Paul with the camera. I mean, it's amazing. It's you can't beat it. And it's like it's planned but unplanned at the same time. It's like, okay, and it's great. I mean, it's just, it's kind of cool, production with the, theatrics of wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Hulk Hogan again,
Hulk Hogan.
Rocky
Yes, Hulk
3.
Hogan. Yeah.
Do you have any other wrestler in one of your
Well,
in a
I
movie?
mean,
Any
the two, yeah, I mean, you got really three big ones, I think. Obviously, you got The Rock, right? So
Yes.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I mean, Scorpion King, I think, was one of his first, and it's probably one of the most. It's a really bad film. It's just bad CGI,
Yeah.
just bad
Yeah.
everything. But that did not deter him from, becoming uh probably. I mean, if he's not the highest paid actor, he's pretty close. And he's constantly, at his age, he's constantly, he got ripped for Hercules, and all the, he's in Fast and Furious and Moana. I mean, he's diversifying his portfolio a lot, but he is a mainstream, kind of actor. um Dave Batista is another one. He's been a lot of, I mean, his probably most famous role is Guardian of the Galaxy. He plays Drax. He's phenomenal. Like, he plays that role so good. And pretty much the whole time he's just wearing pants. He's got no shirt on. Like, but he
Yeah.
looks, yeah,
Sure. If you look like him,
he's,
yeah, you wouldn't wear a shirt either. Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
he's got the, got that look, but he's also in a lot of action movies. He's doing a bunch of, he's diversifying himself as well. And then you got John Cena. I mean, John Cena is rising up the ranks. He's doing a lot of movies. Peacemaker on Max was amazing. He's amazing in that. Yeah, I mean, those three, right? I mean, like, Rock, Cena, and Batista are definitely big. There's another guy, MGF, who is a heel in AEW. I just read that he was in Happy Gilmore 2. Like, he filmed scenes in Happy Gilmore 2, which is, like, there's a lot of, and then, yeah, there's just a lot, like I said, mentioned Sasha Banks. Like, because of her prominence in wrestling, transitioned into acting for The Mandalorian, you know? I mean, it's all there. You know, it's there, but some people, and I think that's where like Cena's coming back. Like Cena's been back for a little bit, and he's got the belt, and he's saying that I am leaving with the belt. I'm the best wrestler, and I'm leaving with the belt. You know, and he's like he's a bad guy. He turned on Cody with the Rock. I mean, it's like it's great. So now Cena's kind of yeah, doing one more kind of a final stamp in wrestling, but I think he's a pretty big player in Hollywood for sure.
All right. Yeah. So The Rock, you're right. I think he is one of the highest paid actors right now, and
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be.
he does have, he loves the big budget movies. I can't blame him. He make a lot of money from them. But you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scorpion King, The Mummy Returns, Fast Five, Jumanji, Momoa, Moana.
Yep.
Sorry, Moana, Black Adam.
Yeah.
Dave Batista. I find him very interesting. Now, I didn't know he was a wrestler. I mean, he looked like a wrestler, but I didn't know his
Right.
background.
Right.
Of
Yeah.
course, we know him from Guardians of the Galaxy, but
Mm-hmm.
to me, as far as pro wrestlers turn actors as of now, he seems to be the most versatile.
Yeah.
I think what he's trying to do is, not get stereotyped in playing the heavy, the henchman, the bad guy role.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think he's really looking to understand his craft and acting,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
he wants to do dramatic roles. Because I was,
Yes.
listening
Yeah.
to an interview that he mentioned that, he's talking about his acting career and that, he wants to avoid these stereotypical roles, and he's looking for more dramatic roles. And he says, I never wanted to be the next Rock. I just want to be a good actor, a respectful
Yeah.
actor,
Yeah.
a respected actor. So, and look, his credits are, besides Guardians, he's got Doom Part 1 and 2, Blade Runner 2049, Glass Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Yeah, I heard about that. Like Blade Runner 2049, he was really
Oh,
good. Yeah,
so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So good.
wouldn't be surprised if he would be probably the first wrestler to maybe get an acting nomination or an acting award.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I would like, hey, if Ryan Gosling can jump over to Star Wars, maybe Dave Batista can jump into Star Wars. So
Why not? Exactly. Now,
Uh,
John Cena. I have
mhm.
a story about not a story, but what's interesting about him. So this past May, we went to the Fan Expo Philadelphia.
Yeah.
John Cena was the biggest draw there. I mean, there was no other actor bigger than
Right.
him. Like
Yeah.
he was the main event at
Yes.
this
Yeah.
Comic-Con convention,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
something else that they did at the convention is they actually held a wrestling match.
Nice.
I wish I saw it, but I didn't get a
Uh-huh.
chance to see it. But I
Okay.
heard it was pretty cool. So
Uh-huh.
it was let me see. So it was a live professional wrestling featuring some of the top independent talent from across the United States.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
may try to look for it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know
yeah,
that actually happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing to me that you now have this happening at a Comic-Con
Well,
convention.
again, I think to go back to your original question, it you shouldn't be surprised. I know you were surprised when you went into the comic book store, but like you have wrestlers old and new, they have their own like little wrestling cons and all, like all this stuff. But then bleeding into like again, like the big one here in Chicago, C2E2 or, fan expos or whatever. I mean, they're right there in the mix and it's a niche that people want to scratch and like they're there for one. I mean, I think that's what's the beauty about Comic Cons is like you're there for one thing, but then there's all these other different genres and they kind of co-mingle, and I remember one year I think it was Wizard World or something like that. They had same thing. They had a wrestling ring and, for promotion and, they had wrestlers there. And I mean, it's like, it's all right there. And then, there's these larger than life people, again, with comics, it kind of all gels. And then obviously t-shirts, action figures, all the merch. I mean, WWE, that's why WWE's they make probably more in merch than anything else,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. You also mentioned Sasha Banks, WWE Women's Champion, WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. Yes, and she was in The Mandalorian. Although she had a few episodes in season 2, but didn't
yeah,
return for season 3, and I don't know why.
yeah.
But I was also listening to an interview that she did a few years ago, and this is something she really wanted to do. She feels that she was born to be a wrestler and that the ring is her home. And when she's in the ring, she feels complete. I thought that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I have a few more if we can
Okay.
talk about them, performances and films.
I love that you have notes. I love this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
So how about this one? Jesse the Body Ventura
Oh, yeah.
in Predator.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Jesse's interesting is that so it also happens in commentary too. So Vince McMahon for a long time was the straight guy telling, and then Jesse was the bad commentator, and so he would always push McMahon's buttons, and in Predator, he's basically playing himself. There's not, he's playing the Jesse the Body Ventura in WWE is what we see in Predator. But in this band of motley crew people, he's perfect. Perfect. I mean, he's perfect. It's just like a small bit role and it's perfect, But I don't know if he's done anything else. I mean, Predator, I'm sure he's done a couple other things, but Predator's
nothing as big as Predator. Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Now, this is something I didn't know about Jesse Ventura. So he was a member of the United States Navy Underwater Demolition Team, now known as Navy SEALs.
SEALs, yeah.
Yes. So he was in the military. And after he left, he decided he wanted to join the WWF. And you're right. He was a color commentator. And so, our imitating life, he was the character that he played in Predator was a soldier. So he just fit right in. And
fit right in.
Yeah, exactly. And then
then he became the governor.
Politics. Yes. He went into, became mayor, elected mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and then the 38th governor of Minnesota. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
Who would have thought? Yeah, exactly.
All right. Got another one. Andre the Giant in The Princess Bride.
Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Have fun storming the castle. Yeah, I love him in this. I mean, Andre the Giant is a freak of nature. I mean, they called him the eighth wonder of the world for a reason. I mean, I mean, if you ever the best Google picture is just showing Andre the Giant holding a regular beer can. It doesn't even look real. I mean, his hands are just massive. There's a great, I think it's WrestleMania 3 or something. Bob Uecker, again, crossover from baseball. Nice, Bob Uecker is basically a comedian for baseball commentary. He's so great. And there's a famous promo where Andre the Giant is just like shaking and choking Bob Uecker, and it's great. I mean, because his hands were just massive. He was a massive man. He was perfect in that role, kind of playing that kind of dumb squire thing. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. 7'4", weighed over 500 pounds.
Yeah.
He played Fezzik in The Princess Bride.
Yes.
So the screenwriter, William Goldman, was a wrestling fan. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was creating the character of Fezzik, he knew that he wanted Andre the Giant to play the character. Like, who else could, Andre. Right? Yeah. And then you mentioned about WrestleMania 3. That was the same event where Hulk Hogan actually body slammed Andre the Giant.
That is correct. Yeah. That's when Hulkamania took off, brother. Yeah.
Hulkamania running wild.
Running wild.
All right. Got another one for you. How about Randy Macho Man Savage? It's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I know
Spider-Man.
It's a very small role.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Yes.
Bonesaw.
Yes.
Every time I see Macho Man, I just smile.
Yeah.
his promos are just great. And Bonesaw McGraw is a real, I mean, that Tobey Maguire, like, pretty much verbatim is from the comics, right? He had to get money, he had to do a side hustle, so he became a wrestler. And Bonesaw McGraw is a real character in the Marvel universe. But when they put him in a cage, I mean, it's perfect. And Macho Man is just like fantastic in that film. He's just like, I got you for 3 minutes. It's gosh, love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah,
he stood out. You like when you saw him, you see him for the first time. It's like, wow, who is this guy? He had the
yeah,
flamboyant outfits. He was one of the most popular wrestlers in the WWF at the time.
yes, yes.
Then he switched over to the WCW in the 90s.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So pretty good. Randy Macho Man Savage. All right,
Yes.
I got one
Yes.
more name.
Okay.
Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Oh, and they?
They live.
Yeah. Yes.
Have you? Do you know?
It's a great one.
Yes.
It's a B movie.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Zombies were a thing even back in the 80s,
Yeah, it's a
and
cult classic.
a cult classic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the what's he say? About the bubble
Bubble
gum.
gum, yes, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
I'm here to chew bubble gum and kiss.
Yes. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
I'm all out of bubble gum.
It's great.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Piper,
Yeah.
another classic, kind of his own thing. And he got another crossover. He got, gosh, what was that comic's name? Man, it's escaping me. He smoked a lot. He was in the 80s. He was pretty popular, and they got into it. Like they had, like, I don't think it was Dice Clay, but it was like, maybe it
Oh,
was Dice. I don't know. It's like another Robert. So I don't know. I would have Roddy Piper in They Lives it's great. It's
yeah.
a great. I mean, it's definitely B material, but it's a classic, cult classic for sure.
Yeah. And it had one of the longest fight scenes probably ever in movie history, where he, I have to look into, like why this was in the movie, the reason, because, and why did it have to be that long? But I just couldn't take my eyes off of it. So he's
Yeah.
fighting in an alley with Keith David. Now, I don't even know if Keith David, I mean, he's very physical actor.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Right.
he was doing his own stunts, or if he had a stunt man come in and do it, come in and fill in for him.
Right.
But it looked real. I mean, the way they were throwing blows,
Yeah.
I mean, it looked just like a wrestling match.
Yes.
And of
Exactly.
course,
Exactly.
Roddy knows how to do that, and that's the
he knows
best
how to throw a
person.
punch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it went
Yeah.
on for like 7 minutes, Todd. It's like-
Yeah.
it was
I
it was
believe
it was
you.
an
Yeah.
amazing thing to see. So now you mentioned Gina Carano. Now she's not considered a wrestler,
Right.
but is it an offshoot of wrestling? Is it kickbox? Well,
She was UFC. She was a
kickboxing.
UFC. Yeah,
Okay.
like she was UFC. One of the first women too. And then yeah, she had that physicality down, another one is Ronda Rousey.
Mm-hmm.
She you know, terribly vicious in the ring and made the switch. And in fact, Piper is her favorite wrestler, and she actually wore his jacket into her debut because she just loved Piper, and yeah, I mean, again, adjacent. I mean, Brock Lesnar, he was a UFC guy. Ken Shamrock was a UFC guy. There's a lot of guys that and girls that were in that, and again, like, specifically UFC and boxing. I mean, your shelf life is very, very short. I mean, you can't maintain that. Where, again, like a Brock Lesnar, he comes over and he has a lighter schedule. He's not on the road all the time. And so you could still maintain your shape and not put your body through all that, rigor, and just beat up, so.
Well, do you see any wrestlers now who you could see eventually making the transition from wrestling to acting?
Hmm.
Anybody that you comes to mind?
Uh, not not off the top of my head. The one that is really the two guys that are really popular right now in WWE, Roman Reigns, again, also related to The Rock. There's a big Samoan, I mean, there's a big Samoan influence, Hawaiian influence in wrestling. And it all started with Rock's family. I mean, back in the day, Rock Johnson, like his dad, but like many, Vince and them had a nice relationship where they would, he would send some of his stars over there for a little bit, and then they would send the Samoans into, into wrestling. But Roman Reigns is a big one, very popular. And then Cody Rhodes, huge. He's got a lot of pop going in the wrestling speak. Like he's got a lot of behind him, and I think he has the look that could potentially start as a small role, and if he decides to move on, I think he could probably be just as popular as Cena, even more. Yeah, he's been wrestling for a long time. And his dad, and again, his dad, Dusty Rhodes from the 80s,
Yes, Dusty Rhodes. Yeah.
so he's a second level generation guy. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot, like I said, I think uh Hollywood is always looking for the next thing, and sometimes it's not that far to look over and say who is dominating in this, or area that could bring, again, the wrestling crowd into the movie theaters. Again, Hollywood is always looking to how do we get butts and seats, you know, uh, to kind of keep the movie industry alive. I mean, to me, it's a no brainer. It's about as no brainer as a sequel. It's just like, oh, this guy's making money over here. You can definitely make money for us. We put her name on it. So
Speaking of next generation, what about Charlotte Flair, Ric Flair's daughter?
Charlotte Flair is definitely, so Ric Flair had a son, and he passed away, unfortunately. And so Charlotte Flair decided, like, I want to maintain, like, his son, Ric Flair's son, was going into wrestling but passed away tragically. And so Charlotte's like, at that point, it's like, I need to follow my brother and follow my father. And she's really dominant in in her genre in the WWE women's division. And yeah, I mean, I yeah, I think she's great. I mean, I don't know, like, I maybe in acting sometime. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell um with that, I don't know if we got enough exposure yet, because unfortunately, they're getting better. I mean, the women's division, again, women were not portrayed very well in wrestling for a long time, and now they actually are legitimate wrestlers. It's not these, you know, uh bikini matches or anything. I mean, all this stuff that was accepted back then. Now they have they are better, and sometimes even better than some of the guys. It just, they're definitely allowing them to do what they do best. There's a girl, Rhea Ripley. I mean, she can pick up most dudes. Like, she can throw down. She's Australian. She can throw down with most dudes. Like, I'll be like, I wouldn't want to mess with her in a dark alley. Like, she could mess up some people. And that, it's good to see. It's very healthy, I think, for sure.
Todd, look, I have not watched a wrestling match in about 30 years. but but now having this conversation with you, I think I'm going to
Yeah.
maybe check out a few, just to see, what I'm missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, obviously the easiest thing
Yeah.
is you just go to Netflix, watch
Yes.
Raw one night. Um they're bringing back, so like, this was other thing kind of solidified my fandom, was like, they had Saturday Night Live events, okay? And so it would SNL was like 10:30, right? 10:30 Central our time, right? And so they would every once in a while, NBC would run this wrestling thing, and I was like, I gotta watch this. And I begged my parents, can I please stay up? Because I barely, 10:30 was like past my bedtime or whatever. And so that Saturday Night Live event, this is when Hogan and Macho Man are tag team, and they're called the Mega Powers. And they're cutting the best promos, Hulkamania, Savage, all together. But there's Miss Elizabeth. So Miss Elizabeth was Randy's, kind of manager, but she was his valet basically. They start building this up where like like Hogan is like kind of creeping into Miss Elizabeth, like that might be a thing. So in the Saturday Night Live event, Macho Man just loses his cool. I literally thought at 12 or 13, I'm not sure how old I was at that point. I literally thought, I'm like, he is going to kill Hulk Hogan. Like, this is happening right now, live on TV. Like, like Macho Man was so jealous and so incensed, and you're just like, he's gonna find Hulk Hogan in the back, and they show Macho Man's just tearing things up in the back, and he's going after Hogan and beating him up. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's gonna kill this man, and like that, just like I was sold. I was like, this is the greatest thing. It's like, I know it's not real, but like where wrestling really flourishes is that edgy line where there is some truth to what they're saying, and there might be actual beef between the two. You don't, and like there's some real stuff and then some fake stuff, and you kind of mix it all together, and it's just like, dude, this is pure gold. So I would encourage you to watch maybe Raw, and like I said, they're bringing back Saturday Night Live on NBC. You can watch one. The next one's gonna be Atlanta, and Goldberg's coming back. That's his hometown. Man, I can't wait. Oh yeah, and then on Peacock, like they have the events. One of the things that I don't like is there's a lot more pay-per-views than there should. I just like less pay-per-views because then you can have a better build, but pretty much WWE is doing it like every month. I'm kind of old school. I'm like, I'd rather have like the build and get to like, some of these major ones than just like, oh, here's this month. And then 3 weeks later, it's this one. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's slow down a little bit. But, you know, I'm not
Yeah.
running the company, but that's my opinion. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, it's a big business. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. So,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
I'm definitely going to do that. Just watch a couple of matches. I will start with Netflix because I think they put a lot of money into bringing
They
wrestling to their, to their streaming service. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, and again, I think that just speaks to popularity. And then one little more catch is that the UFC company, TK whatever, they bought WWE.
Well, interesting. Okay. Wow. Is this recent?
Yeah, pretty recent. I mean,
Wow.
in
Okay.
the
I
last 2
didn't.
years or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
that?
So they're very invested in making that product more national. I mean, you can't get more national or more global than Netflix.
Got it.
In fact, in overseas markets, Netflix is the one that does the pay-per-views now, not Peacock. So there's a American, like there's a American deal. I don't know what you would call it, United States deal, and then there's like a national deal where Netflix is actually promoting that through their streaming services, across the world.
Interesting. Okay. All right, yeah. So now this all makes sense to me, Todd. So I'm not gonna, if I walk into, a Comic Con
Yeah,
or
right.
go into the down a toy store, but a comic book store, and I
Yeah,
see, this
you're
whole line of wrestling action figures, it makes sense. We're
yeah,
all one and the same.
you're
Yeah,
gonna see a Funko Pop.
yeah,
You're gonna see those Funko Pops, and
yeah.
there's gonna be wrestling. I mean, it's all right there. So I hope you see the connection now.
Yes, I do. I do. So thank you so much for explaining this to me. This
Yeah,
was fun. This is
yeah,
fun. This
it's
is
been awesome.
a good walk down memory lane, like a
Right.
lot of interesting
Got to say, hey,
characters,
man, You gotta say your prayers, take your
There you go.
vitamins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, so,
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can get
Yeah.
back into it. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
there is a dark side to wrestling a little bit, and you have to be careful, and especially with kids, and you have to be careful of that.
Okay,
But I mean, at the end of the day, like just like everything else, you got to filter what you need to filter for your kids. But I think the product is definitely better than it was, and run by Vince. Now it's run by Triple H, who is a former wrestler. And there is a lot of there's some baggage in the back that unfortunately is what it is. But at the end of the day, when you look, when you see in front of you, I think it's a lot better product. And they're actually now returning to this, instead of sports entertainers, they're calling themselves pro wrestlers. So it's kind of getting back to a little bit more stuff. And really, what's really healthy is actually you have another company in AEW, and then the independent scene, which you're mentioning. All these independents are it's like a groundswell. All these guys that possibly were quote unquote rejected from WWE are now in the independents, and they can wrestle and sell merch whenever they want, and so like there's a groundswell where it's like just being a little bit more healthy. But I will say, just like Star Wars fans, wrestling fans can turn on each other in an instant. There's a lot of inner fighting, like between, well, I only watch WWE or I only watch AEW, and I think even Cody Rhodes said that, like he's like, yeah, he loves Star Wars. Cody Rhodes loves Star Wars, and he's like, yeah, there's only one other fan base that turns on each other, and that's Star Wars fans. And it's like,
yeah, right.
you're not wrong. You're
Yeah.
not wrong. And then from a podcasting perspective, there's a ton of wrestling podcasts, brother. I mean,
Ah,
there's
okay.
like, like,
That's a good idea.
I
Yeah,
mean, like Busted Open is a 7-day week, multi-hour podcast on Sirius FM. I mean, it's ginormous. So not only, you have just like Star Wars, you have this kind of lot of podcasts in the market. I mean, wrestling podcast, if that's, again, if that's something that you like, you can kind of dive into. There's a great guy, Chris Van Vliet. He interviews wrestlers, and it's like perfect. I mean, he's getting into the person they are, and about talking about great matches and what was going on here, and it's fascinating, and so the podcast market is just as equally as huge in wrestling as well.
excellent. Thank you, Todd.
Yep.
Where can people
Sure.
find you?
Yeah, they can find me on the interwebs and the Googles and stuff. But you can find Trent and I at Big T Little T Podcast on the Instagram, and BLILT Podcast on Twitter, X, and all that stuff. And then follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Big T Little T.
Very nice. Thank you.
Yes.
We ask that you would, if you like this video, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. I am Kerwin of Father Son Galaxy. You could find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and X. We are also, we have an email address, is KEYard at fathersongalaxy.com. So, and you can
Nice.
get us wherever you listen to your podcast, any streaming
That's right.
platform. So we are available. So thank you so much for watching or listening to us. Thank you to Todd Hoffman of Big T Little T. And this conversation, very interesting conversation about pro wrestling and the geek culture. Until next time, everyone, take care, and we will see you again.